Welcome back to the show. Today we are joined by someone that describes herself as not only a candidate, but a neighbor and a student of the Constitution. She's a mother of 5 and a grandmother of 6, which, if you know anything about Texas families, means she is already an expert in negotiation, budgeting, and long-term planning. She's running in the Republican primary for Texas House District 3, covering Montgomery County, on a platform built by 3 words: family, faith, and liberty. Please welcome to the podcast, Kristen Plaisance. Welcome, Kristen. Thanks. It's great to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
So before we dive into the heavy policy and your future plans for District 3, I thought we could introduce you in a way to the viewers with a little icebreaker game, if you're okay with that.
Yes, absolutely. That sounds great.
So I'm going to give you just a list of questions, rapid fire, and you just give me a one-word answer, no explanations.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so breakfast choice: breakfast tacos or Texas barbecue?
I don't eat breakfast.
All right. Friday night, do you spend it at the football stadium or quietly at home?
We usually go out to dinner.
Okay. What is your caffeine source?
Oh, coffee. But recently I started drinking more matcha. I know it sounds bougie, but my holistic doctor tells me that it is much better for you to drink green tea than it is for you to drink coffee. So I've been trying it some, but I still love my coffee.
Your commute soundtrack?
Oh, wow. I usually listen to either podcasts or audiobooks. But then I also love my Jesus jams, is what my granddaughter calls them. She likes for me to put on our Jesus jams.
Okay. The great outdoors. You prefer bluebonnets or pine trees?
Bluebonnets.
Okay. Your cooking style. Are you a recipe follower or a measurer with your heart?
So I love to bake, but my husband cooks. He's a Cajun. He's the best Cajun cook you will ever meet, and he does not know what a recipe is.
What you mean is, yes, I will come for dinner.
Yes, absolutely.
So household role. Are you the early bird or the night owl?
I'm the night owl.
Okay. Vacation vibe. Do you like the coast or the hill country?
I like to be at the beach.
Okay. Historical figure.
Oh, gosh, every one of the founding fathers.
That's a lot of folks.
There is.
Now for the really controversial question that's going to divide our viewers right in half. Cats or dogs?
Oh, dogs. I love dogs.
Okay, well, now that we know where you stand on cats versus dogs, we're going to start the grilling. So you describe yourself as a trustee or servant of the people rather than a traditional leader. In the high-pressure environment of the Texas House, how do you balance the need to be a servant to District 3 with the necessity of leading on statewide legislation where your constituents might be divided?
Yeah, that's a great question. So really, when I speak about being a servant and a trustee of the people, what I am trying to do is change the narrative. People too often believe, because it's been portrayed to us this way, that our representatives in government are our leaders. And that is just not the case. The people are supposed to be leading the government. And it's not just a problem for the people who don't understand that these people work for us. It's really bad for the representatives who believe that once they are elected, that they can do whatever they want to do. And that, basically we're electing our leaders and then they can do whatever they want to do once they get into office. That's not the case. So that is more about changing the culture. I want the people and other representatives to understand what the true role of the people is in government. And that is that the people have all political power, all of it. But that doesn't mean that you don't lead other representatives, to guide to your way of thinking on legislation and things. I'll lead when I need to lead, but I want the people to understand that this is their government, that they have the authority.
Great. So you've been vocal about returning power from the speaker to individual representatives. If elected, how would you navigate a House structure that currently rewards loyalty to the speaker with committee chair positions and bill priority?
That's a great question. Again, you need to change the narrative. People who are currently in government don't realize that it was not supposed to be this way. Before the 1970s, nobody wanted to be the Speaker of the House because you really didn't have any power. It was the legislative body itself that picked committee members, chose who was going to serve on the committees. We need to go back to that structure. Our foundational principles of our government were designed so that we share power. So it is the legislators, the individual members of the legislative body. We should be choosing together who serves on the committees, who is going to be the chair of those committees. So it really is all about our founding fathers believed in a broad diffusion of knowledge, that a broad diffusion of knowledge was necessary to create change. And that is how they started to form the revolution, was just educating people on what the government is really supposed to look like, how a government serves the people. And so I want us to go back to that. So it really is just getting out there and explaining to people. It's debating like you're supposed to on the legislative floor that, hey, this is not the way things are supposed to be. And then drawing people in to get on board with you when they start to realize, oh yeah, it's not supposed to be this way. So it's just working with others and forming coalitions.
A cornerstone of your platform is ending government immunity. Can you walk us through a specific scenario where a District 3 resident is currently being harmed by this immunity and how your proposed change would offer them a legal remedy?
Yes, so that would be me, myself. So I spent 5 years studying our Texas election code so that I could understand how our elections are supposed to function and if or not we are following the form that has been set out in our Constitution on how elections are to be governed. And what I found is that we have a lot of really great laws on the books to protect our elections, but the people in power over elections are not following those laws. And those immunities, you're talking about sovereign immunity, governmental immunity, official immunity, are shields that the government uses to block people in government from having any accountability for their actions. And so as I tried to get officials to follow election laws and they wouldn't, I have filed both state and federal lawsuits against people in power over elections because they were not following election law. Well, you go into court and you can't even get a simple writ of mandamus, which says basically, hey, judge, this is what the law says, and this government official isn't following it. I want you to tell them to follow the law. That's what a writ of mandamus is. And you can't even get that today because of these immunities. And those immunities were never meant to be in place. Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution says that the people have the right to reform our government in whatever manner we think expedient, and that includes the courts. And so this doctrine, court-made-up doctrine of these immunities has violated our rights to hold our officials accountable, and it must be clawed back.
So now we're going to move into a section on everyone's favorite hot button topic, property taxes. The 10 to 15 year phase out. You've proposed a constitutional amendment to abolish property taxes over a decade. During the transition, how do you ensure that local services like the Sheriff's Office or Magnolia ISD don't face a funding cliff before the sales tax surplus fully covers the gap?
Yeah, no, that's a perfect question. So I've talked a little bit on the campaign trail about a way to eliminate property taxes. I'm not saying that's my way. I'm not saying it's the only way. I am still researching that, and I will continue to research that for the next year to find the best way. But what you're talking about is this is kind of a scenario I have given when I'm out talking to people, is that we have enough of a surplus within, like, our government overtaxes us every biennium, and we end up with a large surplus. This past biennium, it was either 24 or 26 billion dollars. So we start taking that surplus to pay down the school portion of property taxes, which is 40 to 60% of your school taxes. And as they're paying that down with the surplus, then it's just paying down your property taxes. So schools are completely funded the same way they've always been funded. They'll be funded at the same rate or even a higher rate, but you pay that property taxes down while you're paying down the taxes on this side for the school taxes. Then you slowly come in with a small sales tax for your local taxing authorities. And that local taxing is used to pay down your property taxes at the local level. So there's never a gap. As you're raising sales tax, you're using it to pay down property taxes. So it really is seamless. There's going to be no gap.
The incumbent Cecil Bell Jr. has pointed to recent homestead exemption increases as significant relief for current homeowners. Why do you believe those incremental steps are insufficient? And what would you say to a senior on a fixed income who fears a consumption-based tax might increase their daily cost of living?
It's a good question. It's a little bit long. I'm going to try to get through all of this. So I believe it's inadequate for the Texas legislature to give us a little bit better of a homestead exemption. I don't know about you, but I did not see any property tax relief from that little they gave us. I believe our seniors probably saw a little bit more because they were given a higher exemption amount. But the problem with this three-pronged system we have for property tax in the state of Texas, where you have your legislature that controls the homestead exemption amount, you have the appraisal district that controls the value of your home, and you have the local taxing authority that controls the rate. They all just take turns being the bad guy, and then none of us ever see any real relief. We need a complete overhaul of the entire system. And so the problem with only giving tax credits or lower taxes to seniors is that, well, somebody has to pay that tax burden. And so then it just shifts tax burden to our children and to our grandchildren. I believe that we all deserve tax relief. We are being taxed out of our homes, and I don't believe it's any more evil to tax a single mother and her young children out of their home than it is to tax a senior out of their home. We all deserve property tax relief. Our government is being irresponsible with our money, and the only real way to get relief is, one, to stop out of control government spending, and two, to do away with this property tax system. You cannot own your home if you have to pay rent to the government for the rest of your life. And so what I say to seniors who are concerned about, their tax burden increasing under a consumption tax system. So the lower income someone is, the more they are subject to taxes on everyday things they buy, like food, medicines, and for some of the poor, public transportation. Those three items will always be tax-free. And as far as the medical care goes, if it's essential medical care, it will not be taxed. But if you're going to go have plastic surgery, well, you're going to pay tax on that. But if it's just normal everyday medical care, you're not going to pay taxes on those. And that way we avoid it being regressive.
That's a great answer, by the way.
Thank
I think
you.
that was very inclusive. So I guess we should move to the second hot button topic, schools.
Yes.
Which I feel like was talked about a lot in this last legislative session. District 3 includes both booming suburban areas and traditional rural communities. Many rural Texans worry that the education savings account, or vouchers, will siphon money away from local public schools that serve as the community's backbone. How do you reassure a parent in a smaller district that your plan won't lead to school closures and reduced services for their students?
Yeah, it's an important topic. To set the record straight, school choice was not my plan. I wasn't in the legislature. It's something that they implemented. I think we need to be very careful. I'm not against school choice. I do think that parents need to have more choices when it comes to their children's education, because there is not a one-size-fits-all school system for every child. You have children who are gifted and talented. They need special schools. You have children who have special needs, and they need special schools. Every child deserves to have an education that is going to benefit them to the utmost ability. And every parent has the right to make the choice as to how their children will be schooled based on their values and their principles. But we need to also be very careful that even though we are going to start funding some private schools with public funds, we need to make sure that that is not going to defund our good, hardworking public schools. We have some phenomenal public schools in our Texas school system. No, we don't want children trapped into the ones that are failing, so we need to fix those or find other alternatives. But we want to make sure we are fully supporting those schools who are educating our children and doing a good job, so that parents do have the right to choose a public school if that's what they want to choose.
So another buzzword around here is growth in Montgomery County. I think everyone is feeling the burn here. Residents in Montgomery County are feeling a distinct discomfort as rapid development outpaces our current infrastructure. And that leads to bottlenecking traffic, as you may have experienced, or a strain on local schools, like you were just talking about. As a candidate who values limited government, how do you plan to manage this explosive growth? Is the answer more state-funded roads or road bonds? Or do we need to give local communities more power to say no to high-density developments that the current infrastructure just can't support?
We need to be giving local control back to our counties. One of the issues that we have is that Montgomery County is mostly unincorporated county districts versus cities, municipal districts. We need to give power back to the counties to help control the growth so that roads are going in first before developments, or roads are being improved first before developments, so that we're not getting these bottlenecks. We need to be able to have some type of community planning, even at the county level, so that the people have a little more control and make sure that, you're not putting in roads that are culverts in the middle of roads that are affecting local businesses. I mean, we have a disaster right now on 1488. And one of the chief complaints of the commissioner's court is that those are TxDOT roads and they don't have any control of TxDOT roads. Well, why don't they have any control over TxDOT roads? I know they're being built by TxDOT, but that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be collaboration between the county and the state agency, so that we're making sure that we don't put in a road that ends up destroying our small businesses and causing huge traffic problems in our local area. Local control is the best for everything. We need small local government because the people in the area know what is best for them.
So, you've been a vocal advocate for election integrity, even leading a push for a major hand count audit in Texas during the presidential election. Given the upcoming general election, can you explain your specific role in securing past results and what is your plan exactly for hand count audits? How do you ensure this process remains efficient and transparent without delaying the certification of our local elections?
Yes, that's a great question. So, I've been involved in the election integrity community for 5 years. I have studied the entire election code, which, if you print it out, it's about 4 inches thick. I've studied the processes as far as what the processes are supposed to be for elections, but I've also studied how elections are actually being run. Even at the state level, I work with election integrity advocates all over the state of Texas. So while I know what the issues are right here in Montgomery County, the issues are different in Harris County and they're different in Tarrant County. But I've studied all of those issues. So I work with a large group of people, and we have really discovered kind of what are the issues that need to be addressed. Two of the main ones are the fact that there are no penalties for people in power over elections if they violate election law. I don't know if you remember Papergate in Harris County in the last major election, where one of the elections workers didn't send enough paper only to the Republican districts for the election. Well, they didn't have any way to hold him accountable under the law for disenfranchising thousands or maybe tens of thousands of people, because there was no way to hold him accountable for violating election law. So we need penalties for that. But you also talk about audits. There's currently no acceptable accounting method by which our elections are audited. So we really need good, tough post-election hand count audits to ensure the accuracy of the elections. And I did push for that in the 2024 election. Unfortunately, that audit was inconclusive because we could not finish the hand count audit in the time allotted. We had 21 days to finish it. And even though we had 30 to 50 people a day working 8 hours a day, we couldn't finish it in 21 days. So there are some issues there. It gets a little complex, but there are issues there that I have seen. There are ways to fix the audit where it will be quick, it will be efficient, and it will be effective. And that's what I'm going to fight for.
So now let's talk about law and order. You've mentioned holding prosecutors accountable for not enforcing the law. Would you support a state-level removal process for district attorneys, or do you believe those decisions should remain strictly with the local voters of Montgomery County?
So some of this goes back to sovereign immunity, official immunity, and governmental immunity. If you had not even just a prosecutor, if you had a sheriff in your city or your town that was not upholding the law, and now you were having to live under criminal tyranny because your society is breaking down because they're not holding criminals accountable under the law, that is a dereliction of duty. You should be able to bring that official into court and at least get rid of mandamus for them to enforce the law, or if not, have some kind of penalties. I don't know if necessarily removing them from office is the best thing, but the people need to have a way to hold these officials accountable once you've elected them. Let's say even the majority of the people in the county agree with that official. They don't want the laws enforced. Well, what about the other people? Our constitutions were designed to keep us from living at the tyranny of the majority. You have a right to peace and safety in your community, and that is what government was designed for, was to secure our rights to peace, safety, liberty, and happiness. And if you're afraid to leave your home because of crime, you don't have liberty. And so we need a way to hold these people accountable. They have to follow the law. They have to follow the constitutions. And if they don't, we need a way to hold them accountable for that.
All right. So last question. You are challenging an incumbent who has served here since 2013. What is the single biggest policy blind spot that you see your opponent has and you're prepared to fix on day one?
So, unfortunately, my opponent is the 8 of spenders in the House of Bad Cards. Just go to House of Bad Cards or Google it and you can find it, and they'll tell you the legislators that are responsible for our big government, all of the issues that we're seeing in government, and they outline it for you. And they'll also outline the bills on why they were given that score. Texans for Fiscal Responsibility have given my opponent an F rating since 2017 for being not fiscally responsible. And what that equates to, for many people who don't know, that just means my opponent is for big government spending, for cronyism, and that unfortunately causes high taxes for all of us. If you want to know why your taxes are so high, why you can't have more of that $24 billion surplus come back to you in property tax relief instead of going for big government spending, well, you can lay that right at the foot of my opponent. I am a conservative, a fiscal conservative by nature. My husband and I raised 5 children, and we were still able to retire at 49 because we are both very fiscally conservative with our money. And I'm going to take that into the legislature. You're going to get a lot of no from me for big government spending and big government bills. We're going to restore our government back to the small, limited government our founders intended it to be, so that we will have more money to do the things that we want to do with it.
Well, Kristen, thank you for joining the podcast today. Where can people find you online? Are you on social media? And then is there anything that you have upcoming where people can shake your hand and look you in the eyes and ask you their own personal questions?
Yes, so you can find me at KristenPlaisance.com. I'm also on all social media under Kristen for Liberty or Campaign for Kristen Plaisance. On my Facebook page and on my website, you can find all the upcoming events. I'd love to meet every one of you. And it would just be great to get to know all of you. I'm out in the community all the time at different events. So come up and say hello. I'd love to meet you.
And as always, thank you for watching. Please tune into the Dockline magazine for more current events and election updates. As always, we're happy to have any candidate in our studios here for an interview or a debate. We always promote friendly discourse, civilly, of course. If you would like to reach out to the Dockline, all of our information is on our social media page. You can also find it at thedocklinemagazine.com. And until next time, remember, you can't complain if you don't vote.